You may be the reason Donald Trump wins and you don't even know it. If he is your candidate of choice, then this is good news, right? So keep watching to find out exactly how to ensure that he wins. However, if he's not your candidate of choice, then you really want to make sure you watch this video. As a voter, there are several questions in which you should know the answer. For example, the most important, does every vote really count? Did you know that majority of US citizens didn't vote for former President Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election? I'm going to reveal in this video how Donald Trump won despite not getting the popular vote, and he could do it again. If you want to know how Donald Trump defeated opponent Hillary Clinton and could do the same against Vice President Kamala Harris, well, keep watching. Welcome back to CTube. Today we are going to reveal how voting really works. Despite being told that every vote counts, a majority vote doesn't always equal a win. In fact, during the 2016 presidential race, majority of US citizens voted for Hillary Clinton. She had approximately 2.9 million votes over Donald Trump. So why wasn't she elected president? I have two words: Electoral College. There are 5 important questions that you need to know the answer in order to truly understand how voting really works. Question 1. How does the Electoral College really work? Question 2. How are the Electoral College votes counted? 3. Why the Electoral College gets to choose the president? 4. How many times has the Electoral College chosen a president that the majority of voting US citizens didn't choose? And 5. How did former President Donald Trump win the 2016 election despite losing the popular vote? Let's start with the first question. How does the Electoral College really work? As voting citizens, you have been told every vote counts, right? Well, it does, but only towards a candidate securing electoral votes. In the United States, the president is not actually elected directly by the people, as you probably have heard. The Electoral College determines the winner of the presidential election. Each state is allocated a certain number of electors based on its representation in Congress, to include the number of senators plus the number of representatives. Now, you may be wondering just how many electoral votes does each state receives? Well, it depends on the population, because the number of congressional districts in each state is determined by the census population. For example, California, the state with the highest population, had 55 electoral votes in 2020. But keep in mind that changes in the population reported in the census may lead to adjustments in the number of electoral votes. So when you cast your ballot on election day, you are actually voting for a slate of electors pledged to support a specific presidential candidate. In most states, the candidate who wins the popular vote within that state receives all of its electoral votes. Your vote, along with the other votes in your state for a candidate, will determine if that candidate gets all of the electoral votes, because it's a winner-takes-all system. The candidate who receives a majority of electoral votes nationwide, which is at least 270 out of 538, wins the presidency. But if no candidate reaches this threshold, the House of Representatives selects the president from the top 3 candidates, with each state delegation having 1 vote. So you see, the popular vote doesn't really matter if a candidate doesn't secure enough electoral votes. This brings me to the second question: how are the electoral votes counted? The counting of Electoral College votes involves a multi-step process that begins with the general election and ends with the official count in Congress. Here's how it works, using specific examples. First, it starts with the election day, general election. On election day, voters in each state cast their ballots for president and vice president. These votes are actually for a slate of electors pledged to the candidates of the voter's choice. For example, in 2020, voters in Pennsylvania cast their ballots, and the candidate who receives the majority of the popular vote in the state wins all 20 of Pennsylvania's electoral votes, as Pennsylvania is a winner-takes-all state. Second, there's the elector selection and meeting. After the general election, the winning party in each state appoints its slate of electors. These electors meet in their respective state capitals on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December to cast their votes for president and vice president. For example, in 2020, after Joe Biden won the popular vote in Georgia, the 16 Democratic electors chosen by the party met at the Georgia state capitol to cast their electoral votes for Biden and Kamala Harris. Third, there is the transmission of electoral votes. The electors' votes are then documented in a certificate of vote, which is sent to various officials, including the President of the Senate, the Vice President of the United States, the National Archives, and the state's officials. For example, in 2016, after Michigan's 16 electors cast their votes for Donald Trump, their certificate of vote was sent to the president of the Senate, who, at that time, was Joe Biden. Fourth, in some cases, there is a congressional count. On January 6th of the following year, a joint session of Congress is held to count the electoral votes. The vice president presides over the session. The electoral votes from each state are opened in alphabetical order, and the results are read aloud. The candidate who receives a majority of electoral votes is declared the winner. For example, in 2000, the session resulted in George W. Bush being declared the winner with 271 electoral votes, despite Gore having won the popular vote. Last, there are contingencies. If no candidate receives a majority of electoral votes, the election for president is decided by the House of Representatives, with each state delegation having one vote, while the Senate decides the vice presidency. For example, in 1824, no candidate received a majority of electoral votes, so the House of Representatives selected John Quincy Adams as president, despite Andrew Jackson having won more electoral and popular votes. The process ensures that the Electoral College votes are officially counted and certified, determining the winner of the presidential election. This brings me to the third question. Why does the Electoral College get to choose the president? Why doesn't the popular vote, our vote, determine the president? Well, to answer this, we must go way back. The U.S. uses the Electoral College rather than the popular vote to determine presidential elections due to historical and political reasons rooted in the country's founding. There are 5 main reasons. 1, compromise between large and small states. The Electoral College was a compromise made during the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Smaller states were concerned that a direct popular vote would favor larger states with bigger populations, giving them more influence in choosing the president. The Electoral College was designed to balance this by giving each state a set number of electoral votes based on its congressional representation, senators plus representatives, ensuring smaller states had a more proportional say. 2, federalism. The Electoral College reflects the federal structure of the U.S., where states have significant power and autonomy. It gives states a key role in the presidential election process, reinforcing the idea that the U.S. is a union of individual states with their own rights. 3, fear of direct democracy. The Founding Fathers were cautious about pure democracy, fearing that direct popular vote could lead to the tyranny of the majority or the election of demagogues who could manipulate public opinion. The Electoral College was seen as a way to have a buffer between the popular vote and the final decision, with electors originally being individuals who could deliberate and make informed choices. Okay, stop. Make informed choices. That's interesting. Let me ask you a question. As voters, do you make informed choices? I know you are busy with everyday life responsibilities, so I will be releasing a series of videos between now and the election that will help you make an informed choice for this presidential election. Okay. Back to the regular scheduled programming. Number 4 is regional balance. The Electoral College encourages presidential candidates to campaign across a broad range of states and regions, rather than focusing only on densely populated urban areas. This system is intended to ensure that the interests of various regions are considered in the election process. Last, number 5 is historical precedent and inertia. Over time, the Electoral College became a deeply entrenched part of the U.S. electoral system. Changing it would require a constitutional amendment, which is a complex and difficult process, requiring broad political consensus that has been challenging to achieve. So basically, this contributes to the continuation of the Electoral College system, despite ongoing debates and criticism about whether it reflects modern democratic principles. And despite the fact that the Electoral College system can sometimes lead to a candidate winning the popular vote, but losing the election, as seen in a few instances throughout American history. Which brings me to the 4th question. How many times has the Electoral College chose a president that the majority of voting U.S. citizens didn't choose? As of January 2022, There have been 5 instances in U.S. history where a candidate won the popular vote but lost the presidential election due to the Electoral College system. These instances occurred in the following elections. 1. 1824, Andrew Jackson won the popular vote but lost to John Quincy Adams. 2. 1876, Samuel J. Tilden won the popular vote but lost to Rutherford B. Hayes. 3. 1888, Grover Cleveland won the popular vote but lost to Benjamin Harrison. 4. 2000, Al Gore won the popular vote but lost to George W. Bush. 5. 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but lost to Donald Trump. It's worth noting that these outcomes have led to ongoing discussions and debates about the Electoral College system and its implications for democracy. As you can imagine, this system has faced criticism over the years, with many arguing that it does not accurately represent the will of the people. Critics argue that the Electoral College system goes against democracy in several ways, like 1. Disproportionate representation. The Electoral College gives more weight to votes from smaller states as they have a minimum of 3 electoral votes regardless of population size. This can result in the votes of citizens in less populous states being more influential than those in more populous states, undermining the principle of one person, one vote. 2. It's a winner-takes-all system. In most states, the winner of the popular vote receives all of the state's electoral votes. This can lead to a situation where a candidate can win a state by a small margin and receive all of its electoral votes, effectively disregarding the preferences of the voters who supported the opposing candidate. 3. Swing states dominance. Candidates tend to focus their campaign efforts and resources on swing states or battleground states where the outcome is uncertain, neglecting states that are reliably red or blue. This can lead to the concerns and issues of voters in non-swing states being overlooked. And 4, the possibility of electing a candidate who loses the popular vote. The Electoral College can result in a candidate winning the presidency despite losing the nationwide popular vote, as seen in several instances in U.S. history. This undermines the democratic principle of majority rule. Several of these reasons are why and how Donald Trump won the election against Hillary Clinton. This brings me to the last question. How did Donald Trump win the 2016 election despite losing the popular vote via the Electoral College? Although Clinton won by large margins in densely populated states like California and New York, where she amassed significant popular vote leads, the victories did not translate into a sufficient number of electoral votes. Then there were the key swing states. It is all about campaign strategy. Say what you want about Donald Trump, but he is pretty smart, and/or has smart people on his team. Either way, that makes him smart. Trump won several battleground states by narrow margins, securing their electoral votes. These victories, particularly in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, were crucial to his overall electoral vote count, despite losing the popular vote nationally. Because it's a winner-takes-all system, the importance of swing states is magnified, simply because a candidate can win a state by a small margin but receiving all of its electoral votes. Trump focused his campaign efforts on appealing to voters in key swing states, particularly in the Rust Belt region, where his message on trade and economic issues resonated with many voters. Clinton's campaign strategy and messaging were criticized for not effectively addressing the concerns of these voters. Is Kamala addressing these concerns? Overall, the combination of these factors resulted in Trump securing the necessary electoral votes to win the presidency, despite Clinton winning the popular vote by a significant margin. Overall, critics argue that the Electoral College system can distort the will of the electorate and produce outcomes that do not accurately reflect the preferences of the American people. So, the next time you hear about a candidate winning the popular vote but losing the election, remember it's all because of the Electoral College. Let's talk in the comments. Now that you know how it works, do you think VP Kamala have what it takes to win? At this point, she only has a few more weeks to secure votes. When running in 2020 for VP, she received 87% of the minority votes, while Trump only received 26 to 28% of the votes. Trump, however, received 57% non-minority votes, while Kamala received 42 to 43% of the votes. When you look at the demographics of the swing states, especially Florida and North Carolina, it is going to take more than the minority support for Kamala to get those electoral votes. I mean, Florida had 29 electoral votes in the 2020 election, One thing for sure, it is going to take Electoral College votes to win, so Kamala is going to need to win the key states to secure enough votes. If she is your choice, then support her by voting in your respective state. If Donald Trump is your choice, do the same. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. I will be back next week with another informative video.